Welcome everybody to another episode of Bill on Bikes. As the recording of this, it is Tuesday, June 9th, 2026. It's probably around 10:30 in the morning here in Phoenix. Going to be a hot one. I think we're looking at 110 today. It's going to be a hot one. Anyway, I have my hot caffeinated beverage, and according to Starbucks, I rock. So I got that going for me. Anyway, what are we talking about today? We're going to show a Thunderjet install on an S&S E-Carb. It would be the same for a G. I've had multiple requests. Guys want to, me to show them what that process looks like. So I said, I might as well do it. I want you to go back, if you have time, to watch the 2002 Dyna. That's what this carb came off of, and you'll be able to see the installation, the removal, the installation, and the running of it when we're all set. So you can follow it to the end. This is just actually going to be the disassembly, the machining, and the reassembly, and I'll give you a little explanation of what's going on and what a Thunderjet does. Oddly enough, I ran across an old S&S Super B carb, and you'll see it's cast in here B. They had the B's and the D's. Back in the day, this, in the 70s and things, this was the carb. This is what they used for, really, you'd see these on the drag strip, and oftentimes you'll see 2 or 3 Thunderjets machined in here, and you'll see the nozzles sticking in the venturi because they could control how much fuel and when the fuel was delivered as far as RPM goes, and it was great for the track. This carb for the street, I got to be honest with you, it wasn't very good. A lot of hesitation, no accelerator pump. That's when they came out with the, and I want to say it was around 93, but I could be wrong on that year. The S&S E and the G changed the game as far as carburetors went. We weren't doing anything with the, we didn't have the CV carb at the time, which is actually a very good carburetor. But this is a great carb. Unfortunately, it's only a 2-circuit carb. And, by us adding a Thunderjet, we actually create a whole nother circuit. And there's a couple other little tricks we do with it, which I'm going to show you, to help basically lean this out between intermediate and high speed. If you put these on a dyno, usually they run too rich and you'll get a big dip in power. Because we can go in here and manipulate when the fuel's delivered, we can get a much smoother dyno graph as that RPM is building up, in the engine. So I'm going to show you how to do that. But again, make sure you go back and watch that original video on the 2002 Dyna Y-Glide. It's the blue one. You'll see it. I'll give you a little explanation of really what a Thunderjet does. Here's a Thunderjet kit. It's basically a third-mounted fuel circuit that improves the performance of this, 2-circuit carb. You would run an E, which is a 47.6 millimeter bore. You would run this up to 100 cubic inches. Anything over that, you're going to run the G, and that would be a 52.4 millimeter. And if you're looking at the carb, it's on the left side, and you'll see it's stamped right in there. This is an E, and obviously a G would have a G. So pretty simple. Unmodified, like I said, these cars typically have a lot of low speed or intermediate stumble, up to 2,500 RPMs. There's major issues, and then at 2,500 the main jet kicks in and it kind of clears up. But at that point, right around that 2 to 2,500 RPM range is where you get a lot of you can get stumble, you can get a kind of a flat spot, and that's why installing the Thunderjet is so crucial, and it really helps with that. So the Thunderjet, like I said, it's an additional circuit. Usually this Thunderjet will kick in at about 4,500 RPMs. And then you can actually usually go down in your intermediate jet 1 to 2 sizes once you install this and we do the other modifications to the carb. And you usually can even go down on your main jet, which oftentimes is about a 72, between a 70 and 74 of what we run with main jets. Most of the time it's a 72, and most times the intermediate is a 29.5. But a lot of times we can drop that at least 1 size, sometimes 2, which helps lean out the carb. You'll get better fuel mileage, which I don't know that many of you are that interested, excuse me, in that, in fuel mileage. But in the old carburetor days, you did what you had to do to get performance and fuel mileage. It's not like fuel injection. That's like having 1,000 jets, so it's a big difference. And another thing I want to point out is you can't get the straight fitting anymore for the fuel line from S&S. It doesn't come that way. They have a swivel kit, so we always upgrade to the fuel line and swivel retrofit kit from S&S. And you know, where I'm here in the shop, I have the S&S Master Parts kit. I go through tons of S&S stuff. And these kits are very expensive. S&S is proud of their parts, even their O-rings are super expensive. But, you know, it's something we need in the shop. So I'm going to go over to my little Smitty over there. I'm going to get the jig set up, and you can watch me disassemble this. And then I'll get everything set up over there, and I'll move the camera, and we'll start the machining process. So thanks for liking, subscribing, and stick around for the rest of the video. And as you can see, guys, this thing is really a mess. Try to show this to you. Hopefully that's gonna show up in the camera, but really cruddy. What a mess. A lot of rust. That's the rust coming from the fuel tank on that dyno I told you about. We are relining the tank. So this is typical. These come apart pretty easy. Bowl screws, accelerator pump. There's a couple little check balls in here you have to be careful with, and I'll go over all that at the reassembly. But the disassembly, it's not all that big of a deal because you're going to use all new parts anyway. Move our main jet. Let's see what he had in here. Yeah, this one's a 72, typical. And our accelerator pump rod. Move our bellows. I always thought that was a weird name for that. It's called a bellows. Dr. Bellows, I Love Jeannie. Bet you guys watch that. Or I'm so old, I know I watched it. I love that show. Barbara Eden was hot in the day, wasn't she? Oh, every young kid loved her. All right, let's see here. Intermediate, yep, 29.5. Again, very typical. And we'll get our emulsion tube out. Get this removed. I think what I'm gonna do, guys, is probably throw this in my cold tank. And you'll also see here, that's the bleed for the bowl and the intermediate circuit. So we're gonna actually be removing that. I'm gonna seal that, machine it, seal it, and we're gonna put an external jet out here. We use a Mikuni jet. We're gonna machine this area, and then I can adjust my air that's entering the carburetor and get a nice running bike. So, okay, I'm gonna remove the choke. That's a little frozen. These stick a lot too. It's common for these to stick. I always put a little white lithium grease on here when I do the reassembly. Yeah, I'm gonna cold tank this, clean it up some. So when I'm setting everything up, we'll let this sit in the cold tank, remove the float. And honestly, I showed you the needle. The needle's a mess. That there. Yeah, just pure rust in here. So that's coming from the fuel tank, and we'll get that cleaned up and sealed. All right, let's get this cold tank. I'm gonna get everything set up over there, and we'll go to the next step. Okay guys, we're back. I have everything set up here, and I have my jig in position. And I just wanna say something about my little Smitty Granite 1324. This is a phenomenal little machine. I mean, I can clean up gaskets on, you know, heads and cylinders. Not on the M8s because they're too big. And I really do need a bigger lathe for that, which I'm in the process of looking at this time because I'm tired of having to send that stuff out. But for, you know, Evos and even twin cams, great for taking off head gasket material on Evos, great for base gaskets and cleaning up those because they tend to warp a little bit. This machine has paid for itself 20 times over. So I couldn't recommend it enough for a small shop, hobbyist. It'll pay for itself if you're, you know, doing things like these Thunderjets. Just doing Thunderjets alone, this machine paid for itself. Anyway, we have our e-carburetor. I have my jig mounted. First thing we're gonna do is take our vernier caliper, and we're gonna set this at 950 thousandths. So I'm gonna zero this out, and we're gonna get 950 here. There we go, 950 on the button, just so you guys, hopefully you can probably see that. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is go from the face of the carb where the actual backing plate attaches, and I'm going to take the vernier and I'm just going to scribe a very small mark in here, just so I can have something to go by. And this aluminum, you know, marks really easy, so it's not a big deal. I can see that line perfectly. All right, that's all we're going to need that for. You can shut this off. Okay, so what we're going to do in our jig here, we're going to mount this into position. This is marked 2, 5, and 6. We're going to go 2 and 5. If I needed more clearance, let's say for 5-gallon tanks or a taller engine like a shovel head, I would put it in the 6th position. That way, the actual Thunderjet wouldn't contact the bottom of the fuel tanks. Also, another thing, when you're doing this process and you're setting it up, you're going to see the word shorty here cast into the carburetor. Normally, what they will do is they tell you to go to the upper portion of the T with your end mill. The problem with that is 93 and later we went to head breathers. So when we went to the head breathers, you have the hose now that sits on the backing plate and connects to the front and the rear head, to the breather side of the front and the rear head. What will happen is when you mount the Thunderjet, if you go by those initial instructions, it will jam into your breather hose and you won't get this on. It's a nightmare. So I found that out the hard way. I actually ruined one carburetor back in the day and never made the mistake twice. So what I've done is I actually go to I move it closer to the R, and you won't have any issue. So we're setting up our 1/2-inch end mill to flatten this area out, machine it down. You won't have any issues when you go to mount it later. So, and it doesn't make any issues with runnability. I've tested this, I've done hundreds of these, and that's no joke, literally hundreds. So I don't think there's a big dog, big bear, any of the S&S engines, RevTechs that go out of here, that if they have this carburetor, an E or a G, they leave with a Thunderjet because they just run so much better. So, okay, so we're gonna get this mounted up in our jig, 2 and 5. Little Allen here to tighten these up. Just have to snug them, it doesn't need to be crazy tight. Okay, and then we can put our bowl in position. You don't have to put the bowl in now in the jig, but I like to. And you're gonna have it so the accelerator side of the bowl is facing the carburetor. And we have our nut here, lock it down. Wasn't prepared, didn't have my adjustable. Again, we just snug this, you don't wanna crack the bowl. Okay, now, I'll bring this over. Here's our 1/2-inch end mill. Mount that into position. And we'll tighten that up. That's locked in, we'll give it a test out. Change direction. Okay, now I'm going to get this in position, and I'll try to show you this. I'll move in with the camera as I'm lining this up. Hopefully you're going to be able to see this. Doing the best I can, guys. I'm kind of jammed for room here. Okay, hopefully you guys can see. This is about the best I can get for you. Anyway, so I'm taking our 950 thousandths line that we scribed in the top of the carb, and I'm going to line up our 1/2-inch end mill in the center, and then on this far left side, I'm going to make it so the flute here is to the upper corner of the R. Because again, if you go further towards the upper corner of the T, you're going to have interference problems later when you go to mount the backing plate, so we don't want that. Now, what I'm going to do is machine this down, get a nice flat surface, and you want to maintain about 3/16 of an inch, somewhere around 147 thousandths in there. It doesn't have to be perfect. I have found that out numerous times. So quite often I just try to get rid of the lettering, and I actually like having that little bit of extra material there. So, all right, I think we're pretty much lined up here. Double check everything. Yeah, I think we're good. So let's get rocking here. And I start this really slow. I kind of just touch the surface. And let it eat. My father always used to say that with drills, let it eat, because I'd be jamming the thing home. He'd get so mad at me. I used to cook so many drills when I was a kid. Nice and easy. I'm not using a lot of pressure here. And I've done enough of these that I can pretty much eyeball it. Turn this up just a little to get a little finer finish. Should do it. That looks pretty good. Let me vacuum this up. Excuse the noise. Okay, so now without moving any of the settings we have, we're going to remove our end mill. I'm going to take that out. We're going to use that again later. I'll set that right there. And now we're going to get our, I think it's a number 3 drill. Let me check here real quick. Yeah, number 3, because we're doing a 1/4 28 hole. I have to make sure I grab the right one too, because it wouldn't be the first time that I didn't. It's pretty worn. Okay, that's it. All right. Get our drill in position. Now using that end mill, I always get this little, looks like a very small Hershey's Kiss. And if I just go down and try to drill it, the drill tends to jump and it will be off. So what I like to do is I take a little file here and just touch it and get rid of that. So I like to just touch this. So when I go to start the drill, it will not walk on me. My files are getting a little on the dull side. All right, that should do it. Now we're going to drill this hole all the way through. And I just come down and touch this, bounce it up and down a couple times to get the drill started. So it doesn't walk on me. And I can tell by looking at it when it's not going to walk. That looks pretty good right there. So now we'll drill it through. All right, take our drill out. And we're going to install our 1/4 28 tap. I always double check here and make sure I have the right one. This one's a little dirty. I clean it up here first. And put a little oil on here. Make it smoother running. All right. There you go, nice and slow here. Last thing you want to do is strip out these threads. That's that. Stop it. Change direction. Nice. All right. Vacuum that up real quick. You can remove our tap. We will use this later. When we're doing the bowl, we're going to need that. We're going to need our 1/2 inch mill again. Now, let's remove the carburetor. I'm going to move to the next procedure. We're going to go to our number 1 position. Which one is it here? I think it's, there we go. 1 and 3. Okay, now we're going to do our adjustable air bleed. So we need a number 19 drill and a 5mm. The eyes are not what they used to be, guys. No. It is this one. 19. Okay. So now, set that there. What we're going to do is where we have this plug here on the carburetor, we are going to machine in the middle of that. Well, we need a little bit of oil, don't we? I'll have to oil this later with some Marvel. But I don't have the time right now. All right, this is what I like to do. Bring this down. Helps me line everything up. This way, this is going to come towards me. I know guys will use a tickler to find center, but it's pretty easy to do it this way also. There. And this is going to be for our air bleed circuit. And we can add our Mikuni jet. Okay, we're looking pretty good there. Now what I found is you got to go slow with this, because if you go too fast and it catches, you'll take that little Welch plug right out. So we don't want to do that. All right, am I going the right way here? Let's see. Yeah, yes sir. All right. And nice and easy on this. Again, you want to be as close as possible to center, but it doesn't need to be 100% perfect. And nice and easy here. And I really don't need oil. I'm just going really easy. This is all pretty light stuff. I'm assuming this plug's made out of aluminum too, so you have to be careful here too, because once you get through the plug, you don't want to damage the internal bore here. I've always been told you can tell you're drilling at the right speed when you get a nice curl like that. Maybe some of you machinist guys can tell me if that's true or not. I had another machinist tell me back in the day, so. They always told me don't set anything on the ways and things like that, so. I'm not a machinist by any means, but I can get by with this, you know, small stuff. Go through, there we go. Nice and easy. Just punch through there gently. Shut that off. Put that drill away. Now we'll get our 5mm tap. Now, what I've learned here is I will tap it when I'm done. I hold the drill and I will loosen this, allow the head to come up, and then I'll undo this by hand because I have pulled out that little Welch plug before, and you don't want to do that. I'll give it just a little bit of oil here on the threads. Live and learn by your mistakes, right guys? And then I adjust my speed as it goes down. That's that. I'm going to stop it. I'm going to hold this, loosen up our chuck, let that come up like that, and then I just remove it by hand. I've learned the hard way. I've pulled multiple of those out of the carb. You could put them back in, but I'd rather not. That's that. All right, I'll vacuum that up. Now we're going to remove the carb. And I want to show you what we have to do inside the bowl. Now, depending on the year of the carb, some of these will have a jet in the bowl, and some will have, like this particular one has a jet. So we're going to remove that, and we won't have to machine it. We're going to plug it with an Allen and seal it, because now we're going to bleed through this machined hole here with a Mikuni jet that we just added. Guess you're not seeing that. So we're going to bleed through here, through that Mikuni. That's where we're going to put the Mikuni jet. And this jet here, it's inside the carb, is going to get sealed. On the early ones, they just had a hole. So then we have to go and drill and machine and tap and then plug it. So we don't have to bother with that step. And I'm going to get a screwdriver and pop that out. As you guys probably heard, half the time I don't pick up the phone. I'm so busy I can't get to it. All right, so we are done with the carburetor for now. So let's set this over here. And let's do the bowl. We are going to spot face with our 1/2" end mill right here where it says S&S, and we're going to do it right towards as close to the accelerator housing as we can get, and we're going to get a nice flat surface. Here you have to be careful. Sometimes they even have a little bit of the casting. If it's not in the way of where the O-ring and the fitting sits, we're good. The bowl's pretty thin, so we have to be careful here. This is where you can get yourself into a little bit of trouble and make the bowl too thin and end up having to replace it. I mean, bowls aren't all that expensive. I wouldn't say that I haven't screwed 1 or 2 up in the day. Hopefully we will not be doing that today. Okay. This little Smitty's great, isn't it? Love this machine. According to Tom, I'd really like a big machine, which I guess I would, but I've been looking at some decent, I'd like a decent machine, so I'm probably going to get a used one, because some of the new ones, the cheaper ones, which aren't cheap, they're like, I don't know, $12,000 for what I need. And I can buy a higher end machine for like 15 that, you know, at one time was probably like a Harding that was, you know, 30, 40 grand new. Everything is so expensive. Okay, so this one I kind of eye, and I'll show you, it'll be easy to see after the fact. I'm gonna go right there. Go this way, just there. Okay. So I'm taking a little bit of where the first S is. We're gonna get rid of that. That's gonna end up getting removed. Okay. Again, I go nice and slow with this to get it started. I wish they didn't cast the part number so deep into this. It'd make my life a lot easier. Yeah, that little chatter because it's hitting the raised letter. Almost there. So what I'm looking at here, I want to make sure I'm going to have a good O-ring seal. Let me check something real quick here. Which lately I feel like I'm going blind with having to wear glasses all the time. Well, I'm definitely nearsighted, the far-sighted. Which is it? I can see great far, so that means I'm nearsighted. Okay. It's the opposite of what you would think. I'm going to go just a little bit more with that. Am I right with that? Not an optometrist. You guys will have to let me know. I need glasses to read. I don't need them to drive. Okay, we're pretty good right there. I'm going to get a good O-ring seal. So now, shut that off. Again, I'm going to go in here and find my little Hershey's Kiss that I get here. It's not much. Come in from this side so I don't damage the surface where the accelerator pump housing is. Okay, that should be good. All right, now we're gonna remove our end mill here. We're gonna reinstall our drill. Looks pretty good. Again here, nice and easy with our number 3 drill. And we'll put our 1/4-28 tap in here for this also. There we go. All right. Still we'll check, make sure it's the 1/4-28, which it is. This is another one where I tap it down, loosen the chuck, and I remove it by hand because a couple times I have pulled the threads out too. There's not a lot of material there left on that wall. You have to be pretty careful. Enough that it works, but make sure it's lined up here. Okay. Again, nice and slow. Okay, shut that off. That should be that. That looks pretty good. All right. Vacuum this up and I'll show you what we did here. Maybe my good buddy Moses, my editor, will edit that blurriness out. So I can show you what we've machined here for the surface and tapped for our fitting. And then I'll show you what we did on the carb. And you can see the letters that I was talking about and how I go more towards the R. If it was this way, we run that interference with our breather tube. Okay, and then we removed our jet that was in here, and we're going to plug that with a solid Allen, and then we're going to put our Mikuni jet on the outside of the carburetor. All right, guys, that's better. I'm going to move the camera back over to the bench, and then they're going to clean this up, and then I'll show you the assembly of the actual Thunderjet and explain what we're doing. All right, now that we have our machining all done, you want to make sure you clean out all the metal chips really well from the carb and the bowl. Even if you have them on yourself, make sure you're nice and clean. You don't want any of that stuff getting in the carburetor. Doesn't take much to cause an issue for you. Also, I wanted to point something out. We can add Thunderjets, you can see it here, to CV carb. This one was taken off a bike that we did a lot of performance work to. He ended up going with an S&S. He wanted something bigger, but you can see the Thunderjet here. And they work pretty well. You don't necessarily need it on a CV, but you know, they work well. I might install this on our cutaway engine. I'm not sure if I'm going to use this or an S&S with a Thunderjet, but we'll figure that out. Okay, let's put that there. And we had a little audio issue. I had already installed the fitting in the bowl, and I don't want to take it out, but I'll tell you this, you know, just an O-ring here. I put a little grease, white grease on the fitting, and then on this side a little purple Loctite, the real low strength, with an internal lock washer and our nut. And these are torqued at about, I'd say probably 8 inch-pounds, maybe. That's it, not very much. Probably 8 to 10 inch-pounds, that's it. Okay, so that's installed. Let's install our Thunderjet. We have 3 jets here that come in the kit, 100, 110, and 120. Here in Phoenix, I tend to run, I have run a 120, but where this is such a stock engine, I think in this case we're only gonna go with a 100, and this just goes right in here. to get that started. And we're just going to snug this up. And this is going to enable me to probably go down 1 or 2 sizes on the main jet. So we had a 72, probably going to go with a 70. I'm going to take this apart here. The motion tube, there's an O-ring and a spacer. The O-ring sits right here. I like to put just a little bit of white grease on there, like that. Okay, now you're going to remove this nut, and you are going to thread this from the inside of the carb body. Thread it up into the carb. And then you can see there's a second set of threads. You're going to engage those. Now, there should have been another nut here. This should have 2. I have plenty of these. So what you're going to want to do is lock this in position with another nut. Make sure I didn't drop it. No, I don't see it. So stand by to stand by. I'll grab one. All right, you're going to double nut this like so. 7/16. Hold the second nut here, and let's just tighten this up just a little bit. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to thread this up into the carb body till it stops. You have to kind of judge this because you don't. There it is. You don't want to go too tight. Just snug it up, and you can see how that little fitting there is up into the actual top of the carburetor. So now we will remove our double nut, holding the second one here because we don't want to put any tension on that tube. I'm going to take both of these nuts off. Now I'm going to put this spacer in position, and you'll notice there's a hole here and there's a hole in your nozzle. You're going to take your O-ring that's on your Thunderjet, thread this on. Now what you have to do sometimes, as you can see, I'm going to want this fitting here. So if I'm looking at the carburetor to the right, but it's going to cause too much tension if I just take and crank that with a wrench. So what you have to do, I take this off, and then I gently will file this until I can get it so I could just snug up the Thunderjet housing. So let me get my file. Been using files a lot lately, doing that cutaway engine, which is coming out great. Can't wait to show you guys. I'm going to make at least 2 videos that I think are going to do very well. And we're just going to file some of this off. Yeah, I've always wanted to do a cutaway engine for years. And, you know, you don't necessarily have the time, and so I'm making the time, staying late at night and trying to do one piece every night. I pretty much have the rear cylinder done, so we'll be on to the front. I need to file this a little more. I've done enough of these to know I can get it pretty close. Get rid of those filings. Probably have to do some more here, but let's see. But I'm not working late tonight, guys. My wife and I have a show we like to watch, and I promised her I would be home. Pretty close. I gotta go a little bit more. If I told you the show, I'll probably lose my man card, but what the hell, I'll tell you anyway. It's called Summer House, and I'm one of those guys that'll sit at the counter and chime in on everything. Next thing you know, I'm sitting on the couch with a thing of popcorn watching it with my wife. I mean, I have to know what Amanda and Wes are up to. I guess after 18 years with my wife, I probably lost my man card a long time ago anyway. Well, we have a good time. Most nights I work late, and I have a very understanding wife. I'm a lucky man. There's a lot of significant others probably wouldn't put up with it. And she knows where I am, and she knows what I'm doing, so. And she FaceTimes me a lot. Okay, let's see where we're at. That should be pretty close. Oh yeah, that's gonna be money, I think. So let me, yep, that's gonna be good. So now I don't have too much tension on this. I can't really, it's a feel thing. I can't really give you a number. What do I do with my adjustable? Thought I had it over here. Well, you're just gonna have to stand by to stand by. I put it back as usual. I tend to do things like that. So now we're gonna snug this up a little bit. And that's pretty good. I point it slightly forward, so slightly towards the backing plate. A hair more. If you went too much, you would snap that nozzle, and you don't want to do that. So that's in position. Now, this is the cap. And always put a little grease on here, make it easier for if we have to remove it and change the jets, which is nice and easy. Just take this off and pop a new jet in. I'm gonna be pretty close. I think we're gonna be good. And oftentimes what I'll do is, this should be the 120 and this should be the, no, they gave me different ones this time. That's a 135. Yeah, 135 would be way too big for what we're doing here. Check this. Yeah, that's a 100. We'll go with 100. That should work. All right, what I tend to do, what I do is I'll write in there with a Sharpie. I'll also write this on his paperwork so I know what I have here for jets, but I'll put .100, and that just helps me for later. Okay, now I removed that jet that was in the bowl. Here's the plug that comes in the kit. And we're gonna put a little Loctite on here also. Again, just a drop of the purple. That'll help seal that so I know it's not gonna leak. And it's never coming out. Once this is in, that's it. And this just tightens up till it stops. Again, you don't want to overdo it. That's good. All right, so let's pop our emulsion tube back in. Again, if I could give you torque specs on this stuff, I would, but it's kind of you just snugging it up. And what do you say? I had a just a 72 in there. We're not going to go with a 72. Let me move our B carb. Old gasket we're not going to need. Open up our master kit. And let's see. My main jets here. So many jets. I'd like to go with a 70 if I have it. And we're probably going to go with a, well, do I want to? Came with a 29.5. They usually run pretty well with that. Sometimes I can get away with a 28. I think this engine's completely stock. You know what? For now, we'll stick with the 29.5. And if I need to change it, it's easy to do. So we're going to put a new 29.5 in. It's a 74. We don't want that. 76. We don't want that. 78. Nope. 65. That's way too small. Here's a 70. Okay, so we're going to go with a 70 and a 29.5. Again, if we need to change those, not a big deal. And I'll write this down on his paperwork while I'm thinking about it. All right, I'm back. Well, let's put our intermediate jet in here. And one way you can check this, when you actually have the bike running, if I were to go in here and I completely shut off the mixture screw, if the bike dies out, then I probably have the right size intermediate jet. If it continues to run, it's pulling fuel through there, and that means we usually want to go down a size. That's just a little trick. Okay, and we're going to go with our 70 main jet. Snug that up. Now, on the mixture screw, doing another little trick here. The later carbs have a little washer and an O-ring that goes in here. We don't have that on the early stuff. So, again, purple Loctite, one little drop, right about 3 threads up. That's all you need. Put your spring on, bottom it out gently. You don't want to overforce these. You can distort the actual, where the adjustment hits the carb, where the mixture screw hits the carb there, and distort it and screw everything up. So just touch it, and then we're going to back it out. For now, just, you can go 1.5 turns. Now, this Loctite's light enough that we'll still be able to do our adjustment, but it helps seal the threads, and we won't get air passing through here. I have chased my tail before with air passing by the mixture screw, and they can be an issue, but using just that little bit of Loctite actually helps seal those threads up. You can still move it around, still have a seal, and it works great. Now I want to install our choke. Again, I like to put just a touch of grease on the shaft here, our spring, and we're going to need a new bellows. And again, I put a little white grease on this also. All right. Now, next we have a couple little check balls and a spring we have to put in position. We have a new spring here. That's going to be for our bowl. So the spring goes in this port. And a couple new stainless check balls. Hopefully I have more of these. I think there's only one in here. There's a 2. Boy, 1. I should have more. That one's just going to sit on top of that spring. Should have more. Yes, I got a whole package. You guys love how I talk to myself? Well, I'm not really talking to myself. I'm talking to you, which is great. I appreciate you guys watching, and hopefully you're learning something. I'm not sure this is the type of job you're going to do yourself. You do need some equipment, obviously, in the jig, but I don't doubt anybody's capabilities. I'm sure you guys can do anything. So, and get some different O-rings here that we need. That's for the bowl I need. Where are they? Yes, we're gonna need 2 of these. S&S is proud of these O-rings too. They are expensive. Everything they have is pretty much expensive nowadays. Didn't want to lose my part number. It's another thing, I have to write all this stuff down on the work order because you know what? You'd be losing money if you don't. So we're gonna need 2 of these, and these go right here on the bowl, like so. I'm gonna need a new accelerator pump, which is where I should have plenty of those. Yep, here we go. Accelerator pump. Keep all this stuff together so I know. 2 of those, 1 of those, 2 of those, spring, and actually this O-ring should come in the other kit. So there's another kit I need to show you right here. Our swivel retro kit for the, this will come with a new bowl gasket, new fuel line. Set that there. There's that little O-ring. This actually goes on the accelerator pump nozzle. I'll just push it on there from the bottom. I'll show you that after. Okay, now let's get our accelerator pump in position with the spring. These can be a little bit of a pain, just a little bit. Actually, this goes on the wrong side here. That was a brain fart for a second. Okay. What I usually do is I will take our shaft here, push this up through the bottom side. This helps me get the accelerator pump collapsed when I go to install it, because if not, it pops out of the groove. These can be a little bit of a pain. I had it and it slipped. See, that wants to pop out, so let's do it again. Trying to get the check ball in position, keep that in position, and that should be it. Hold it down with my fingers. Get our screw started. I make that look kind of easy. It can be a pain sometimes, trust me. Sometimes it doesn't go so well. But you make it look so easy on YouTube. I hear that a lot, as I've said before. I'm sure you guys laugh. I'm sure you hear it about your own jobs. Oh, you make it look so easy. All the plumbers and electricians and the carpenters. Sure, it's easy, all right. Okay, snug those up. Now we can slip our accelerator rod back in through the bellows. Okay, next we are going to install our swivel fitting for our needle jet. A little grease. That's pretty easy peasy. Just threads up in the bowl. Okay. Now, cleaned up our float really well here, and this kit should have come with a new needle. There it is. Put this in position, snug up our screw, check our float bowl height. Now that is pretty low. We want more fuel in the bowl, so what I like to do is we'll take this top section of the float and bring it just below this inner lip here of the bowl. So to do that, we're going to lift up on this tab just gently. It does not take much to get this to change. This one was off quite a bit. Okay, that's pretty good. Then what I do is just turn it upside down and check it, and you can see I'm just below this lip, so that'll work out well. Okay, set that there. We're going to need our new bowl gasket, which comes in the kit. Put this in position. And that little O-ring I showed you that I installed on the accelerator pump sits right there on that tube. And let's flip this around. Pretty self-explanatory how this goes together. You really can't put it in wrong. It won't fit. There we go. The long screw goes through the accelerator pump housing and then into the carburetor. Get it started. And our other 3 shorter screws for the bowl. Snug these up. You don't have to crank them like crazy. Again, it's probably 8 inch-pounds or so. Okay, we're good. All right, now we're going to put a new bowl plug in and an O-ring. Hopefully I have new ones. I usually do. In here somewhere. Oh, where can my bowl plugs be? I'm going to have to order more of these. Bowl plug, and we need to install a new O-ring on there, which is right here. Again, just a little touch of grease here, white grease. Just helps that O-ring seat. Not that it's going to get in the carb, so everybody freaking out. And we need our 5/8. Snug this up. Okay, now we can finish up with the Thunderjet install. We're going to need to install our line. And what I like to do is I'm going to actually, and I didn't grab my pliers. This is another one of those clamps that tend to go flying. You have to be careful with these. You don't want to lose an eye. Put that in position. That goes on there. I like to turn that down so it stays nice and neat. You won't get poked by it. Check our length, which is going to be good. That's going to go right into our bowl. Now what I do is I heat shrink a little protective covering on here just to give it a little extra protection from rubbing. I also recommend that once a year I have all my guys come in and I change these lines out. I do it free of charge. It literally takes me 2 minutes. Maybe 5 minutes, but these tend to get old, cracked, and brittle. I wonder if I have, well, can I show you on this one? I think I had the original hose off of that carb. So I always change out the line that feeds the Thunderjet and the overflow hose. This is a new overflow hose. See how flexible it is? This is the original one I took off, which was obviously on the SNS carb. Look at this, it's all stiff. A lot of times they get real brittle and they'll actually just snap and break. So you got to change these out once a year. The heat gets to them. These hoses are expensive too. SNS is proud of those. Anyway, so we're going to get this installed and I'm going to put my protective covering on there. Okay, as you can see, I've installed my protective covering on the main hose. It runs from the bowl up to the Thunderjet. Once you get around 4,500 RPMs or so, you'll see the fuel will actually get pulled up through here and out through our tube. So it's monitored. The amount of fuel is monitored by that 100 jet that we have up in the housing, and then that'll allow the fuel to go into the carburetor. Here is our MIko jet. I'm going to use a 185, and that piece that we machined on the outside of the carb, which is right here, which this helps us control the amount of air for our intermediate circuit, and now it's adjustable. And what I have found, for the most part, a 185 works great out here in Phoenix. And we're just going to snug that up. No Loctite or anything on that in case we have to remove it. And that's pretty much it. That's once we get it installed on the bike, I'll kind of show you how everything works. So make sure you go back and watch that video on the 2002 Dyna Y Glide. I'll show you the adjustment and everything once we get it running. So I really appreciate you guys liking and subscribing. Make sure you're telling your friends, and I hope this has been helpful. I know a few of you guys have reached out to me and asked you wanted to see the whole process. So there you go, and I'll catch you next time on the next episode of Bill on Bikes. Thanks for watching. Ride safe.
Oh yeah. That runs real good. Great throttle response. The fuck, asshole? Guy on my side of the road. That's good, huh? And this guy's cutting me off. That's all right. He's waving. Every time you go for a ride around here, it's like a video game. You're always avoiding obstacles.